Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the first as of yet untitled podcast between myself, DashRetro, and InvictvsNox. How are you doing?
You are DashRetro. I am InvictvsNox.
Yes, that's the two of us. And we're here to talk about video games and possibly other things that might come up that are related to it. As a couple of 30-year-old adult men, there are other things that we are interested that pertain to video games and will naturally tangent into, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think we can agree on video games and each of our respective experiences with them, and how you are stupid good at like platformers and how I am stupid bad at basically everything. So
I mean, you're the fighting game guy, right?
I'm the fighting game guy that people know tangentially, and I am not good at fighting games at all. I'm kind of on a journey to actually get better at them.
Well, for the record, as far as platformers and you saying that you're bad at everything, I have it on good authority. I heard that you have beaten Castlevania 3.
That is correct.
Anybody who's beaten Castlevania 3 is probably pretty okay at games.
I was forced to be good at Castlevania 3 because of my big fat mouth saying, I'm going to collect and play every Castlevania and beat every one and not go to the next one until I beat it. And I don't know, I don't have it in the vicinity, but I have Castlevania 1 on Game Boy, and I can't tell you how fucking terrible that game is. Not for how difficult it is as a game, but for how difficult it is being just shittily programmed.
Yeah, all right. So I guess we're hopping right into game number 1 that we talk about, I guess, is Castlevania The Adventure for Game Boy. What a pile of shit.
For the record, for everyone, there's only one person here who's beaten that game, and it's not me.
The biggest problem with this game is, so it's a Game Boy game, right? And when you nowadays, when a game doesn't run so well, you drop frames in it, right? Oh, it went down to like 15 frames per second for a second. When old games did that, all of the action in the game slows down. The game actually plays in slow motion. So instead of you just missing stuff, it slows down, right? Castlevania The Adventure on Game Boy is in a perpetual state of slowdown. Like, the entire game, as you're playing it, is running at half speed that it should be.
A slideshow isn't accurate. Like, it's consistently bad. Like, you have a consistent FPS you target. In, like, cinematic third-person shooters, you'll want 30 frames a second, maybe even 24 for the real cinematic look. Castlevania is an action-adventure, so you need more frames, and it's consistently not 60, not 30, just bad.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's on top of a character that already moves pretty slowly, right? It's a Castlevania game, so you move kind of slowly. You've got those dedicated jump arcs and that kind of stuff that the series is known for. But right, the fact that on top of that there's this unintentional level of slowdown makes it a miserable experience. But all right, so technically terrible, right? On a technical level.
Objectively terrible.
But it doesn't really get much better when you look at like the level design and the enemy design and stuff. Castlevania The Adventure really, really enjoys its like pixel perfect jumps, And that's like the one obstacle that they know how to do, and so they just put them one after another. In the first level, right? Level number 1, they've got these like tiny little dots that are just far apart enough where there's like a 1 or 2 pixel window that you have to jump to make it across. And they just throw fucking 10 of them in a row at you Right, and if you fall, you have to walk. At least you don't die immediately if you fall, but you have to slowly, half intentional speed of the game, walk your ass back to the left to start the section over.
It is without a doubt. You're introduced to the brutality of it very early, because the game's flat out saying if you're not getting past this, you're not beating the game. It has that in multiple situations. And in almost every situation, the game is designed to remove the one thing from you that you actually need to beat the boss at the end of the level, should you even make it there.
Now, are you talking about the whip upgrades?
The fire whip. Yep.
Okay,
yep.
yeah.
The fireball upgrade, yeah.
Yeah, because another wonderful thing... now, this is a mechanic that could be fine. I'm not saying that this mechanic is automatically bad. It could have been done right, but basically... unlike other Castlevanias, when you get hit in this one, you instantly you lose your whip upgrade. There's 2 levels of whip upgrade, and you go down one every hit. Anytime you would take damage is instant fuck you, and there's no way to get that back in the rest of unless you somehow luck out and get one early on in the level. But I think that's pretty rare. It usually is like RNG on the drop, I believe. I'm kind of talking out my ass there, but I'm just speaking from how I remember it. Yeah. I don't automatically hate the idea, take Cave Story, for example. There's a game where when you get hit, you lose some of your weapon upgrades, and that game's great, right? It's not automatically bad, but the way that it's implemented here, it doesn't feel very good. I wish I could more specifically tell you what the difference is, though, exactly on why I dislike it.
Difference in what?
Between this game getting hit downgrades your weapon versus another game like Cave Story where it feels fine,
So I haven't played Cave Story. I'm actually super out of the loop of pretty much most modern video games. That's not to say I'm some huge, fantastic wealth of knowledge on retro games, even though that's what I tend to try and stream. It's just I'm missing. There's so many games I already have in a backlog that I don't pay attention to anything much anymore, except for one game that I think you and I can probably agree on. And I guess, are we doing a "What have you been playing lately" segment?
Well, should we? We ended up talking a bunch about Castlevania right away.
Mm-hmm. We can go back to Castlevania
real quick. I do want to say the soundtrack is okay
for the Game Boy game, the adventure.
Specifically, level 3 or 4 or something. One of the levels, the soundtrack is okay.
I like the soundtrack in every instance. I don't love the soundtrack except for, I want to say, the second level, because that's when you're running away from the explosive eyeballs on the bridge, and the music at that portion, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I have really shitty memory, there is essentially a remix of the original Castlevania theme, part of its melody in the opening theme, actually, I want to say, is a remix, and then it goes into a different rhythm section. So you don't get the whole theme, but when you hear that, that's the one time where I'm holding something in my hand that makes me go, oh, I did this on a TV once.
Yeah, for a moment, it kind of feels like you're playing Castlevania.
You're not really feeling that at any other time other than the fact that you're controlling a dude with a whip.
The last thing I want to say about that game in general is that to give you a visual idea of how slowly the game generally runs is when you play Castlevania for NES, it feels like your guy moves kind of slowly, right? If you're used to playing Mario or Adventure Island and that kind of thing, it feels a little slow. But after playing a bunch of the adventure and then throwing it, I was so frustrated by the adventure that I was I'm throwing original Castlevania in the NES. We're gonna play through it real quick. It felt like my dude was fucking flying in that game.
I know. Okay, so there's this guy named Popo and Duck. Love the guy. He's funny as fuck. I watched him stream Castlevania, and it like is I might have even just rated him, so I might have just gotten off playing the Game Boy game. And I was like, cool, dude, cool to see you're playing Castlevania. What mod is this? And he goes, what are you talking about? He like shows me the NES he's playing on and everything. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It looks like you like increased the clock speed or something. I don't know. I was just, fuck. Is this how it always was?
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of speaks to like the way that your brain is like trying to cope with it as you're playing it, that it's starting to normalize it, and then when you go back to something else, you know, you're like, oh shit, you know.
It's like getting used to input lag in something.
Yeah. Or like, you know, after you play a whole bunch of like a 30 FPS game, you know, it starts to not look so bad after a little while.
Yeah, agreed.
But
it
all
still
right.
looks like shit though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like when you do the opposite, right? When I first load up a game that's 30, I want to puke for a second, and like it's like you can't see. Like the thing about it is what I've realized is my actual issue with 30 FPS is when, let's say you're playing Bloodborne, right? And you want to like rotate the camera 90 degrees to your left. The shutter effect, the like slideshow effect, and how many pixels each of those objects that you're passing by jump every frame, you know, makes it so that I feel like I can't see while the camera is in motion.
Motion sickness, kind of, essentially. You're like, why am I seeing such awful trails? But at the same time, I think for a game like Bloodborne, which never played a Souls game or anything, I think from what I've seen of Bloodborne, it's one of those games where that might not be bad for the cinematic effect. Like, you may want something to create a general tiny subtle cues in a video game, audio or video, they add up after a while. Things like maybe your voice starts sounding distorted or higher pitched or lower pitched, or you start seeing trails, or even something as low as like the camera lowering down to like give you the motion if you're in first person perspective to show that you're kind of feeling ill or something like that. Is small as, well, as much as I brag about like 60 frame rate or bust, 30 and 24 even do have their place.
Sure. I will concede that is sometimes perhaps true. I would not agree about Bloodborne though. That game should be 60. Totally. It's a fast-paced action game with like you got to read these enemy cues really fast and that kind of thing. But yeah, like the specific reason though that it bugs me is like when I'm talking about the idea of the camera movement is that it's like I feel like I might as well have just shut my eyes for the amount of time that I'm moving the camera. And then when I stop moving the camera, now I can see again and my brain re-registers what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? So it makes just the idea of just kind of panning the camera around really stressful and like blinding because it's just so hard to follow the screen when it jumps so far every frame.
I can see that being pretty disorienting.
Yeah, so look, I realize that I'm a big baby about it, but like it's just that's how I feel. It's just at first I'm just like, God, it's like again when I'm moving the camera, might as well just have my eyes shut. Because I cannot see what's going on until I stop moving. I
was going to say, it's like, we should just designate this right now, a first world problems complaining safe space. We're going to talk about analog signals and why component sucks compared to RGB and all this. See, I think you and I could probably talk quite a bit about even just hardware, because you and I both have streamed and have gotten actual tech tips from each other in doing so. Streamed hardware repair, modification. You built your own awesome controller for the NES with a specific functionality in it that I think would be cool if you told people about.
You're talking about the NES controller?
With the arrow keys?
Yeah, here. I got it within arm's reach. Let me grab it.
Yeah, so essentially he has this controller, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have everything individually micro switched so that you can both On an NES controller, you can use both left and right inputs at the same time.
Well, that is to be avoided. So here's...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. So the NES controller it is essentially 8 buttons, right? If A, up, down, left, and right, A, B, start, and select. It's 8 individual digital inputs. They are all either on or off. Up, down, left, and right on the controller are physically prevented from pushing left and right at the same time because of the way that the D-pad has to tilt, right? In order to press right, the D-pad has to tilt over, which prevents left from being pressed.
Like a rocker switch.
Yeah. So, if you were to remove the D-pad from your NES controller or break it or take the faceplate off or whatever, you can press left and right at the same time, and a lot of games behave not correctly when you do that. Like, for example, in Super Mario Bros., when you're underwater, you can press left and right at the same time, and it's kind of hard to explain. Half of Mario will be facing right and half of him will be facing left, or it's something like the right half of him is on the left side and the left half of him is on the right side. Something really bizarre looking, right? And you can also use it to accelerate faster. I think in Mega Man you can use left and right at the same time to zip and that kind of thing. But what that means, though, is that it's something that you want to avoid if you're trying to do something like, well, just play the game legitimately. So
I was going to say, we're already deep into the build your own controller to territory. We can probably mention that you're also a speedrunner.
Only of Super Mario Bros.
Okay, well, yeah.
But, so I built this, right? So the thing is, I really like playing platformers with a keyboard. I just really like the ability to very quickly switch between moving left and right, you know? And I like having dedicated fingers for different buttons, right? So I built this. This is an NES controller. It actually, legitimately, on the end of it is just an NES plug, and it plugs into a system.
For the audio listeners, imagine a black rectangle with, if you look at your arrow keys on your keyboard, not your WASD, but 2 sets of those arrow keys, left and right. And I believe you have half a space bar on the bottom for like your jump input?
Yeah, those are start and select.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so basically on the left side, you've got a set of arrow keys, or WASD. On the right side, you've got the same thing, but only 2 of them are actually wired up to A and B. The other 2 are just there to feel good.
Oh,
And then on the bottom, technically it's the zeros of a number pad, but there's 2 of them, right? So there's 2 longer ones kind of on the bottom that are your start and select keys. And yeah, it's like a space bar, but 2 halves of it. So that was the biggest challenge in designing this thing, was getting it so that when you press, because now when you have individual keys for left and right and up and down, you can very easily press them both at the same time. And if you just leave it that way, that's no good, and it makes games be weird, means you couldn't use it for speed running and that kind of thing. So that was a particular design challenge to get around. It would take me like 10 minutes to explain how we got around it, probably. I think all you need to know is that you can't do it.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was going to say was that actually makes way more sense of a layout, because when you described it to me, I had pictured that both sets, left and right-hand controls, corresponded to movement, not A and B and then 2, just feel-good keys. I was thinking that you were doing some kind of movement in which you used both left and right hands at the same time.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you use both hands at the same time, but right, the left hand is all D-pad.
I was like, where did this guy get the skills to do that? Like, are you just more comfortable playing pinball than video games? Like, what?
Yeah. Nah, the big thing, okay, the actual background is that I've played like 2,000 hours of The Binding of Isaac, and so that has drilled deep into my head that your left hand moves your character and your right hand performs actions, So WASD on the left and arrow keys for actions is how you play Isaac. So now I've adopted that for platformers as well, like Wings of V and Hollow Knight and Celeste and stuff like that. When I play those games, I bind it for WASD as character movement, and then up on the arrow keys is usually jump, and left is usually usually like attack or something,
Yeah.
Basically, your actions are on the arrow keys on your right hand. And so then I just took that concept, put it onto a little tiny miniature keyboard, and made it an NES controller.
Just more ergonomic, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that right now on my keyboard, and I don't think I could handle that.
It took a little bit of getting used to. I didn't used to do it for platformers, but Wings of V changed me. That game is very difficult. And
I hear Wings of V changes everyone for the worst or better.
It has legitimately become my favorite game of all time. It's the first time I played through it was with a DualShock, and it was great. But then after that, the whole time I was just like, okay, no. So the first time I played through it was with DualShock, and there was this one particular segment of the game that I could not do with a D-pad or with the analog stick. Like, it was just too precise. And so for that section, I had to learn the keyboard controls. Luckily, there's no combat on that section. It was just platforming. So I had to learn the keyboard controls, get through that part, and then move on, right? And then so for my second playthrough, I just used a keyboard the whole time. And it was a little tough to get used to at first, but now it's how I do everything.
So you're definitely like the adept platform player among us. What other genres do you actually enjoy other than that?
JRPGs, love them.
Can see that, yeah.
I'm big into JRPGs. Love the whole classic Final Fantasy series. Shin Megami Tensei is one of my favorites. Yeah. I'm all about those.
I want to be where you are, but I streamed Final Fantasy V. I beat Final Fantasy V on stream at about, I want to say 80 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That is a long time to stream a game.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing JRPGs anymore.
Yeah, that is kind of the tough thing. So, like, on my stream, there was a while where I was playing, like, only JRPGs, right? Like, I played through Final Fantasy 1 through 10, all of them, over the course of, like, 3 years, But at first, though, I was playing a lot of that, and then, like, Persona 5 was in there somewhere, and I got complaints a little bit of, like, turn-based games are boring. And so since then, I kind of try to have there be, I've got my one turn-based game and I've got my action game, right? I gotta have both going at the same time. But totally, because I know exactly what you mean, though, where, like, Persona 5 took me, like, 130 hours or something like that. And the Final Fantasies are pretty long as well. What did you think of 5, though? Because I think it's one of the best ones.
I think it is one of the best. Retro is not the right word. Final Fantasy V, I found real appreciation in it for being... Okay, so context. I played it on a PS1 because I believe this was actually the first time it came to the States in English. So
and
I played
Final Fantasy Anthology.
Yes, with Chrono Trigger as the other pack-in game, which mine unfortunately did not come with. It came with Final Fantasy Tactics, which I'm not a huge fan of either, but I do like it. Like, I love... Anyway, I won't go off into tactics, but, like, as far as 5 goes, the class system in that game is the reason to play it.
Yeah.
The story is not why you play that game. The graphics is not why you play that game. Although, for its time, being a Super Famicom game, it does actually still look pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
I won't say, it's no Chrono Trigger, let's be honest, but at the same time, I don't think it was... I don't know if those two games existed at the same time in Japan, like, in the same year. I'm pretty sure Chrono Trigger probably came out a little bit later. If I had to guess.
I think Chrono Trigger came out closer to when Final Fantasy VII came out, even.
Wow, that's there's no way, because that would have been super late in the SNES life cycle. I think
it was, though, but I'm not. I guess I'm not actually sure.
That actually begs the question: if a game releases real late in its console generation, and I mean, like, by the time the next generation is out. Like, say something released on PS4 today, and not on PS5. Is it? I mean, would you consider it a hindrance to its growth, or I guess because it's on a platform like that, it's just too big to not be troubled by it.
I'm not sure I understood your question.
Sorry, I word saladed because I lost my train of thought halfway through and then I regained it at the end. Basically, Chrono Trigger is fucking huge. Everyone loves that game.
Yeah.
If it came out late in the SNES cycle, I don't think everyone that knows about it would know about it. But then again, my question was, it's on the Super Nintendo. It's on a system everyone has. That's why I made the PS4 comparison. It's on a system that's so big, does it have that problem?
Yeah, well, right. If you're playing Super Nintendo now, I don't think you care all that much if it came out earlier or later.
Oh, no, I'm talking like if PS1 was new.
Well, I'm looking it up, and so Final Fantasy VI came out in 94, Chrono Trigger 95.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is the year that PS1 came out. So, okay, yeah, late, and it didn't hinder it. It would explain why it's so fucking expensive, though. It's so good, but Chrono Trigger is so fucking expensive.
Yeah, actually, right. So I guess that answers your question, yes. Right, when PS1 comes out and then a banger on Super Nintendo comes out, it gets buried a little bit and sells a few less copies because everyone has a PS1 now.
Honestly, there may be more households in the country right now that have a copy of Super Mario World that don't own a Super Nintendo. There may be a lot of those houses around. I'd be willing to bet. Because Super Mario World, excellent game, wasn't late in the life cycle, but it's not fucking any more than $2 or $3 every time you see it.
Mario, I don't know. I've owned Mario World as long as I can remember. I I don't know how much it is nowadays.
I'm just saying, so before COVID, I used to do as much yard selling as I could to find like nice retro games on the cheap, and I never really found many. But the few times I have, I don't think there was a single collection that had Super Nintendo that didn't have Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's not the most fair comparison because wasn't World a pack-in game for the SNES at one point?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if you've ever seen it with the not for resale logo, is usually the tell for that, but I don't know if I've seen that. I bet it was. It would make sense.
I don't think I've ever seen a not for resale Super Mario World, but I do bet it was a pack-in game at some point. Sega made that way more painfully apparent on like the Sonic the Hedgehog 1.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of when I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of Mario 64 copies have the not for resale thing on them as well.
Oh, yeah, you know what? You may be right. I have a copy in the other room, but I don't think mine is one of the not for resales, but I've definitely seen not for resale N64 games at the very least. Mm-hmm. Probably like, probably it was probably Pilot Wings 64 to be honest, because they usually launch their consoles with a Pilot Wings game. At least at that time they did.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the SNES was launched with Pilot Wings.
I never played it. Wait,
I never have either. It looks fun though. I wouldn't mind.
Actually, it's on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, first Pilot Wings I believe is Super Nintendo.
Was it 3D?
No. It was Mode 7, though, I think. Like, how Mario Kart was? Yeah.
Gotcha. I was thinking, like Star Fox, right? And thinking, like, Star Fox. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Mm-hmm. And then Pilot Wings 64. And then the next one, though, was for, like, 3DS or something, right?
So the series goes Pilot Wings 64, Pilot Wings Resort. Those are the three games. That was for the 3DS, actually. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. I thought there'd be more, actually. I could have sworn there'd be a Pilot Wings on the Wii. But I guess they kind of went all out with Wii Resort, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, Wii Sports Resort, I think, had something similar. It probably had some, like, wingsuit diving. I don't remember.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, hang gliding. I'm pretty sure there was hang gliding in one of them. I know, because like the camera would zoom in underneath the canopy of the hang glider and come into my fucking serial killer looking murderer face of a me.
Oh, man.
If you could, like, my me was just like if you could imagine my face, but just like giving you the 1,000-yard stare, but also zoomed in, so only you see the tan of my face.
Right.
It was preposterous, and people like, I think 2 years after I stopped playing a game or something on their Wii, they like said they started up their Wii, and like that was like the first face that just came up right on the fucking screen.
The Mii's were
system.
Genius.
Yes, love everything about the Wii era in general, to be honest.
Yeah, like when you look at the Wii, it's I feel like it doesn't have the biggest library of games.
It does.
Oh no, yeah, I don't mean literally. I mean like the biggest library of games that you want to own.
So, yes and no. But go off on what you're thinking. I want to see if it's the same thing I've got in my head.
Just that, like, the games that are on it, though, were very excellent as far as, like, the ones that you have are real good. As in, like, No More Heroes, for example, is one of my favorite games of all time. But the Wii, like, generation in general, though, I have a strong fondness for, because it was the first console that I bought on launch day, and my friends had it on launch day. And for like everybody loves GoldenEye, right? Even though if you play GoldenEye now, it's a shit game. But like when you have but when you have 4 people and it's new and you got 4 people sitting on a couch playing it split screen together, it's the best thing ever, right? So I had a
I have a story. Go ahead.
I'm talking about back then, right?
Yeah.
And so
absolutely, yeah.
For me, that game was Red Steel for Wii.
Oh,
that garbage, god-awful, terrible Wii game. But, I mean, the Wii was brand new. My friends got it. I got it. We all got Red Steel, and we played that game split-screen multiplayer, the 4 of us on a couch, and it was a great time.
Yeah, I didn't get to play Red Steel. I only heard about it. Okay, so I didn't own a Wii until like late in its lifespan. Everyone had one, so they were cheap. It's PS2 syndrome, essentially. Like you can find mountains of them for like $20 with the disk drives that don't work, stuff like that. So I got a Wii when I saw one on Craigslist for $40. Had like 5 games with it, the cords, the Wiimotes with the motion fit. It was like an insanely good deal. Side note, the Wii is still being used as an emulation machine because they're fantastic at that. But I got the Wii at that point where, you could just buy one used for $40, and then I sold it for $40 later on. But I just loved every minute of that generation. Like I found out late that the PS3 and Xbox 360 thing, it wasn't about that at all at that generation. It was really just about the Wii. I wish I had known that early on and gotten one instead of... I was essentially skipping that generation, and then Mortal Kombat 9 came out, and then I bought a PS3.
I had sort of the opposite effect a little bit with that generation. The first system I got for it was an Xbox 360, and it red ringed in like 2 weeks, and then I didn't really touch. What? No! Whoa! Hang on, I'm totally misremembering. No, the first system I got was a Wii. I didn't care at all about the Xbox for a long time, and I got the Wii when that came out. Okay. Then a little bit after that, though, it was like I was really into Eternal Darkness, right? So then Too Human was coming out, and I was like, oh man, Too Human. And have you seen this game Assassin's Creed? This brand new thing no one's ever heard of? So for those reasons, I got an Xbox 360, and then it red ringed immediately. And then I ended up getting rid of the Wii and the 360 to get a PS3 around the time Little Big Planet came out. And then the rest of the generation for me on that generation was all about PS3. I mean, you had Uncharted 2, Little Big Planet, Metal Gear Solid 4, Infamous, Heavy Rain, God of War 3, like fucking bangers on that system. Now we look back, right? Uncharted isn't so hot anymore, you know.
Hang on. Those are fighting words.
You know,
I fucking love Uncharted.
Heavy Rain isn't so hot anymore.
Is Heavy Rain that same director who did Indigo Prophecy?
Yeah.
I want to play that because I fucking love Indigo Prophecy. But go ahead.
It's worth playing. It's worth playing for the same reasons Indigo Prophecy is, you know. But so the point is, though, that at the time, though, I was all about PlayStation at that point, you know, because I went away from the Wii and then into the PS3 and really liked it at that point. But, you know, later I had to go back and get all the Wii games I got rid of again because it's Nintendo, you know. I wanted to play Mario Galaxy again. I wanted to play Metroid Prime 3 again, even though that turned out to not be as good as I remembered. But I'm getting off on tangents here.
I didn't even know they made a third.
Oh, yeah. The third Prime was all about using the Wii remote to aim, and that part of it was fine.
Yeah, they went real hard in on that. Like we were just talking about Red Steel. I missed the boat on that. Is what I was trying to say. As I got in late, but like you, I ended up at PS3 because Mortal Kombat 9 was a system seller for me. I had been actually protesting the entire generation because a generation before, got a GameCube for Christmas, loved it. That Christmas, went over to my cousin's house who got an Xbox, played Halo for like 8 hours. Like, I didn't even let him on his own fucking Xbox. Played Halo for like 8 hours. I said, Mom, I need an Xbox. So I sold the GameCube, which I actually super regret now because I just had the base purple, but that was my base purple. Like, yeah. I hurt for all my consoles that are no longer with me. But I sold the GameCube. I traded it in at GameStop, bought an Xbox, bought Halo, and then Xbox like just fucking sucked me into that ecosystem. And then like Halo 2, I remember, fantastic multiplayer, single player left a lot to be desired, and essentially the transition at the end of Xbox to the PS3, Xbox 360 generation. Not only was I so like sore about like some of the games that just didn't get what they deserved on Xbox, but like the new Xbox 360 hardware was just it was catching fire. Power bricks were melting. Red rings instantly in the first week for every early adopter, basically. Rechargeable batteries in the controllers before they had wireless controllers was just wired, I think.
So the rechargeable batteries you had to buy. They took double A's, but you had to spend $15 or whatever for a play and charge kit.
That's right. Yeah, you just had to use like what you probably just got the Rayovacs straight from the box. But yeah, so like this is why it's bizarre to me. Because my experience is exactly what I just told you. It seemed to me like the Xbox 360 was horrible, and I didn't want a PS3 because I had a PS2, and it wasn't as big of an improvement as I thought it would be, and I didn't care about it. But the 360 was insanely successful financially, and the Xbox, the one that I loved, was actually a loss. I think Microsoft lost money on the Xbox. Maybe because they're budgeting and how they had to choose to, like, you know, they were all meeting at E3 that year to compete against each other. I'm sure they spent fuck tons of money and cash on just all the kinds of advertising and everything. But who knows? All I know is like it's bizarre to me. I don't have my eye in the financials of Microsoft or Xbox or Phil Spencer, so.
Yeah, so you mentioned the power bricks melting. My initial reaction, the first thing I ever remember, like, really learning about the 360 and noticing about it was that the power brick was fucking massive also.
It's like a wrist.
It was like the size of this water bottle, the power brick for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the PS3, while it was a 15-pound behemoth of a system, it didn't even have a power brick because it was inside the system, you know. listen, I named a few PS3 games earlier as being like the reason that I was a PS3 boy after I got one. I just gotta self-flagellate for a second that I did not mention Demon Souls. I'm sorry, but that's like the number one. That's like the number one PS3 game. Anyway, so we've been bullshitting for a while, but we got other things to talk about.
We should probably talk about like who we are. I was waiting to see if we could find a segue into that.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into that. You go first. I've been talking a lot.
That's okay. I'm InvictvsNox. I started out in this space by being exhausted with my YouTube channel, in which case I was making motorcycle-related content for the longest time. And I got to the point where I was actually getting good at it, but right at that point I was just like bored with everything. So I started collecting retro games because I was like, fuck, I love those games. Why don't I have them anymore? And emulation never really satisfied me. So I started going to like Goodwill and thrift stores, and I started collecting all these games. And I was like, holy fuck, every Saturday I would just spend like $40 and get like 80 games. And I couldn't do that on Steam, not even on their sales most of the time. So I was like, fuck, I kind of like actually having the real shit in my hands. So I started building together this collection, and I was like, maybe I was wrong about this Twitch thing, because I started streaming a little bit later after that, but I was super skeptical about it. I didn't like the idea of just watching people play video games. And then I met a mutual friend of ours, Camel. I was like, okay, I like retro. Let's see what people are streaming old school. And how are they hooking things up to the stream? How are you getting... How does it look like you're emulating Super Mario World when you're actually like... You show me your Super Nintendo running it right now. How does it look that good? So I got obsessed with the technology aspect of this and like learning all about analog video, learning about signals that you'd send with different kinds of devices, signals sent to clean up certain things, signals sent to do what the fuck. The analog video is fascinating. So it's tragically complex, I guess, but it's super fascinating to learn how it works. Right down to like a CRT monitor display. I'm about it all. So yeah, that's me right now. I play retro video games on Twitch. Still thinking about doing more on my YouTube channel, but yeah, we had this fine gentleman DashRetro approach me about doing a podcast, and been wanting to do one for a while now, just because I feel like editing was the worst chore, and this is something I can put very minimal effort into editing, and we can actually just have something that is up and something where I can bounce ideas off of, because that's kind of just how I've always been personality-wise. I don't... Thinking through things by myself, not my strongest suit, but if I just have a mannequin there to talk to, I'll probably be all right.
Yeah, so I have, some very similar things here. I'll start at the start, though. I'm DashRetro, that is. So I got into this stuff because, I've always been playing games all the time, right? Video games have always been my number one hobby. I've always played music, like guitar and stuff, but video games have always been my number one thing, right? And then, around 2013, is it? I started playing this game called The Binding of Isaac, right? And I got really into it, and I started watching people on YouTube play it, and then I started watching people on Twitch play it after that. And then at some point, I was like, I could do this. I want to stream my gameplay of The Binding of Isaac live. So I started a Twitch channel just to play Binding of Isaac. But... I'm super into all kinds of games myself. I would play my own games in my own time. It was just, that's what I wanted to stream. And after so much of that time, I was starting to kind of get really back into old games, because I kind of went with the generations, like I was talking about that PS3 generation earlier and how I was so into it at the time, and then let's just say the PS4 generation was a little disappointing to me. And around that time, I was starting to get way, way more back into playing my old favorite NES games, especially Contra. I was like, I want to stream Contra. So bought a capture card. I was fine with composite video at the time, and started doing that. So now I stream a lot of retro games on Twitch, but I kind of still do everything. But yeah, so the thing was, though, I saw, like you're saying, I saw other people's streams where their games looked really good, even though they were using real hardware, and mine looked like shit. And so that kind of put me on that same quest to kind of research how these different analog signals work and how to get proper shielding and component video versus composite and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, but and similar to you as well. Like, so at first, I went to Voltar and paid him to mod my systems. Right,
nice.
I had him mod my NES and my N64. But I'm an engineer. I'm not like perfectly happy with just do it. You did it, cool, right? I gotta know how it works, right? So immediately when I got the system back, I took it apart. I'm looking at his work, and I'm looking at all the different things, and I'm researching like how I'm gonna do it myself. Which
especially someone like Voltar. Sorry to cut in, but like Voltar,
oh no, yeah,
he does beautiful work. I'd want to open up just to see it in person.
Yeah, and he's the type also who he wants me to have this experience, right? Where I'm gonna look into it and see how it all works, and learn from him on how to maybe do it myself better and all that. So yeah, shortly after I ended up modding my own AV Famicom and yeah, getting into all that same stuff that you did. But there you go. That's, I don't know. Did I miss something? Oh, right. I was going to kind of talk about some of the same stuff that you talked about as far as like why I wanted to start a podcast, which was that very similar thing. I've always wanted to just like do in a perfect world, what I would love is every game that I stream on Twitch, I want to do a review of. Have a YouTube video of a game review for this game that I played. Why not? How hard could it be? But it just turns out that video editing is a huge pain in the ass.
It is.
And also, I can't really do it by myself without sounding really, really awkward. I've written some reviews. Don't look them up. They're terrible because it's very hard for me to just sit down and like naturally speak. And come out with a review that is coherent. So I would write them all. But when I write them, they sound like I wrote them. And they sound terrible. So, yeah, I thought, just a much easier thing would be to speak with another human about them so that we can have a natural conversation. And then we end up with something that is something of a game review.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We're both engineers then. In my day work, I am a PC repair technician. So I work on hardware all day. And I love it. I love turning screwdrivers. I love working on tech, not even just computers, but electronics. And I'm kind of like you. I'd like to look at, what does this IC do? Why are these filter capacitors here on this line when the power supply is all the way over there? Stuff like that. I like learning decisions that were made in the design of something that everyone around me, or in some cases no one around me because it's very obscure, loved a certain console for. So yeah, I mean, like I feel like this is probably a good first episode to just kind of like gauge what our interests are, and then I feel like, I don't know, we could probably talk about like a single subject in one, like, in a recurring podcast. We could probably talk about a single thing as a main theme. Like you mentioned analog signals. You said you were fine at first with composite video, and I feel like I could talk about an hour on just being okay with shitty video signals. Like I to a certain extent, I'll go by streams of retro streamers. For one that I can think of right off the bat, the Mechanical Koopa. I don't know if you want to do shout outs here, but he's a pretty cool guy. or actually I think they may be changing their identity. Anyway, they use a VCR to get composite video from RF. So they're taking base RF, putting through a VCR, and then sending that to a capture device that is capable of they're taking in composite video. I think RetroTink was going to be is the company they're using. Yeah, I think they're using a RetroTink, possibly a Mini. I know that one has. I know they all have composite stuff, but yeah, you're familiar with like RetroTink. You know what an OSSC is. There's probably plenty of people out there who at least could identify with the 2% of things that we know.
Yeah,
versus everyone else.
One thing you're getting at that I kind of think or agree with is we should maybe like agree on a subject to talk about preceding the next show, because we can probably go at length on a few of these things that we've brought up.
Yeah. I want people to be able to see like, okay, this is the episode they talk about this. They don't have to sit there for 40 minutes until I get to something that they wanted to know.
Right. So perhaps I was gonna bring up like news, like let's get to the things that I was well at least thinking we would talk about.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Let's do that.
Which is, did you see the new Nintendo Direct?
I watched the majority of it. I was in my car, so I couldn't see too much because I had it on video, but I'm also watching the road, so I'm mostly just listening to it. I wasn't too impressed, but I wasn't as mad as everyone else seemed to be. But that just might be the internet being the internet.
Yeah, well, part of it is probably that it's been a long time since there's a Nintendo Direct, right?
Was there? Because did they do twice a year?
Yeah, right. I think the last one might have been small or something. I don't know exactly, but it's mostly what I keep hearing is that it's just been a long time.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember when the last one was, or if it was only about Smash Bros. or something like that. But yeah, to address like why people might be disappointed by it, I think it was a long wait, and then also there's just a couple like really big things that people are waiting to hear about, which is Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid Prime 4, right? And they didn't talk about either of those. Other than that, though, it was okay. There was some interesting stuff in there. They started out with the Pyra announcement for Smash, or Homura if you played with Japanese voices.
So we're past the point where, okay, first of all, it should be known, I do not like Smash. I play it.
Oh, God, this is a whole different conversation for us.
Yep. Yes, it is. And so, okay, but I will give you this. I love Super Smash Brothers on the Nintendo 64. Probably one of my favorite N64 games ever made. Melee and Onward is too busy for me.
Okay.
I can't. It's. I often joke that Smash Bros. Is less of a fighting game than DDR because it doesn't feel like a fighting game. So if you play any other, even if you go back to fighting games before like the first Street Fighter, which was dog shit, and before Mortal Kombat, there's like 70s like vector CRT graphic games where you're like a knight with a pole, like a lance, and it's not jousting, but you're in a circle, and the goal is to pierce their throat and kill them. Obviously, simple game. You aim, you shoot, that's it. That feels more like a fighting game than Smash Bros. Does. Which brings me to my next point. A lot of people argue that it is a fighting game. I just joke around. I agree that it's kind of like a fighting game, but it's more like a brawler character, or a brawler kind of game, because there are other games like Power Stone on Dreamcast that are the same thing. I think Sony tried, and the fact that I can't even remember the name of it, is it like Sony All Stars or something? Where
PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, baby.
God damn, I would never have remembered that, because they're all that kind of genre. And there's like, if you consider the genre of fighting games to be even bigger, you have like beat 'em ups and stuff. But back to Smash. I wanted you guys to know that's me. That's where I'm coming from in Smash. With Smash, if I were to add a character, I'd first have to know, are we past the point where it's even a Nintendo property anymore? Nice. For the audio listeners, he has it on disc here.
Oh boy, did I buy that game.
Well, okay, to be fair, I saw, and this could be a false memory, I saw Crash Bandicoot in like what looked like a brawler game, and I said, I want that fucking game. And then I never heard a thing about it ever again. I don't
think Crash is in it, dude.
Well, I thought he was in it.
I don't think
What characters are in that game?
I'm not even gonna look. I'm gonna try to remember. Right. Even though I did just look for a moment, it had Kratos. it had Dante, but new Dante from New Devil May Cry.
I haven't played a single Devil May Cry.
It had Nathan Drake. I want to say
that's why I thought it was so weird, because it had Nathan Drake in it. I was like, what?
I'm sure Cole McGrath from Infamous was in it.
I haven't played Infamous either.
Jack and Daxter, Parappa the Rapper. As DLC, Cat from Gravity Rush was in it. And here's the thing about this game is you say all these characters, and you're like, yeah, Sony has a storied pedigree of characters, right?
There's a wealth of them.
They've got a lot of good characters. Like, imagine Microsoft trying to make a game like this. It would be an absolute joke because they don't have anybody.
No, they have Master Chief and then like 3 other Master Chiefs.
Right. So it's a good idea for Sony to have made it's a good idea for Sony to have made a Smash Bros. Style game. The game's just not very good. They just didn't do a very good job with it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you exactly why. There is very clearly one huge problem with this game, which is that it's not ring outs. The way that you defeat other players is when you strike players with attacks, you build up a meter, and you use that meter to use a super attack, and super attacks kill. But what that means is that you can beat on one person and then go use the super on another person, and so everything just feels kind of like it doesn't have that.
Oh, you can build up meter and then just lay everyone to waste.
Yeah, like right. So it doesn't have the direct feeling where the person who is the best at the game wins or the person who is the worst loses. It's
so
just
Mario Kart.
It's just kind of all over the place. So I feel like it's one of those things where it's like they tried to make a Smash Bros. Game, right? But Smash Bros. Itself, for what it is about as good as it can be, as far as the general design of it. Okay, maybe I'm not right here, but what I'm ultimately getting at...
I think the things that I hate about it are things that are endemic to Smash Bros., and removing them would not make it a better game.
What I'm getting at is if you change something about the formula, you're probably making it worse, because it's like when you've changed something massive about it. I'm not saying that Smash Bros. Is perfect, and that's what it sounds like. What I'm saying is, if you take a game and you're going to say, I'm going to make this exactly like Super Smash Bros. However, I'm going to change this one huge aspect of it, it sounds like it's not very well thought out, because Smash Bros. Is a game built around itself, and you're basically copying it, but you're making one huge change that the rest of the game isn't necessarily changed around. You know what I mean? Like, let's say you took Castlevania and you made it so that you could turn mid-air, and you didn't change anything else about it, right?
Well, if you made it a little bit easier, then you just have Super Castlevania 4.
Sure. But I'm saying like regular NES Castlevania, if you just make that one change, well, the rest of the game isn't designed around that change, so you've made the game worse.
Exactly.
That's the problem with PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Oh my god, I said the name right. But
they're kind of like a victim of just like the Nintendo with Smash Bros. Made something that really didn't exist. Not at least in the way that games were back then. Like there's fighting games, there's beat 'em up games, and then there's Nintendo, who is just in general, especially because it was made by HAL Laboratories eventually, but like, well, not eventually, but to start out, but they're kind of good. No, I'm sorry, they're actually probably the best at making mini games in games, like thinking like Mario Party, and it feels like Smash Brothers is a fighting game version. Like if a fighting game had a mini game, I feel like that's what Smash Bros would be. So it never took itself too seriously in the early days, and then Melee came out, and then I remember specifically what it was. Not to go off too much on a controller tangent here, but I love the N64 controller. Hated the the GameCube controller for Smash. It felt entirely wrong. I used the C buttons on the N64 games, and like with the C stick, it felt backwards. It felt like it was wanting to be a weird mix of a PS2 and Xbox controller, and it didn't work out for me. And I played Brawl. I'm sorry, not Brawl. I played Melee. Got in it. Notice that the maps now zoom twice as far out as they ever could have. And also there are like 8 more ways for you to fall to your death by ringing yourself out. And I swear, I shit you not, no matter how many hours I play of Smash, gravity kills me more than anything else.
Play as a
even
floaty
learning
character.
to double jump.
Learn to play Puff, dude.
Yeah, like I'll do Jigglypuff, right? And I did this for a while. I don't like her damage, at least in the game that I played. At least that's how I remember it. But every time I would do the thing where you just like, puff, 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 puff back to the stage so you don't die, I feel like it was always the case where I still died because I was out of air at like 5 feet away from the edge of the level.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I'm going to go back to playing Soul Calibur 2, because at least when I get ring out there, it was earned, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't think any other... and no, this is totally on just my skill level. This is not anything on the game, but I don't think it's probably right to judge a game based off how bad I am at it. It's just something about the simplicity of the controls that were also complex.
Mm-hmm. So with Smash Bros, like I'm not very good at it, and I'm not very good at any fighting games. Fighting games are like one of the genres that I've hardly touched at all.
Here's the thing, though: you'll be amazing at them. I know you'll be amazing at them.
So, but the few times, I like if I'm at an arcade, I'm going to play around a Street Fighter, or I'm going to, there's Mortal Kombat. You got to play a round of it,
Absolutely.
But every time that I play that style of fighting game, as in like when you say fighting game, exactly what people think, I just think like, God, the controls are so weird. I just want to play Smash Bros. I just, like, I think about Smash Bros. And it's like, in Smash Bros, you can sprint, you can do little dodge rolls, you can double jump, and, like, and you can hold down to drop yourself faster. Everything is so much less rigid. And this is a little funny coming from someone who loves fucking Castlevania, but like, that rigidity of fighting games, I always just feel like, it's like I'm like wading through water, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to fight someone underwater is what it feels like with the controls.
I know exactly what you mean, because Smash Bros has, when you play it, you're automatically moving around. You're jumping up and down, you're platforming, you are throwing out offense in one direction towards the enemy preferably. But with fighting games, usually, especially in the 2D era or just in general 2D style of fighting games, you have one dimension of movement, kind of like Smash, but it's one single stage and you have a certain pacing to it. Smash Bros. Is a faster paced game, whereas fighting games can be slow, like damn slow, or they can be damn fast. And everything you said that you like that you can do in Smash is something that at least 1 or 10 fighting video games actually has in it. It's just mostly about how I would say Smash Bros. Characters are super easy to introduce yourself into and learn the moves, and then you learn the rest of the game meta after that. Fighting games are about you start a game, you pick a character, you go, oh, this guy looks cool, and then you dick around with them, you maybe get 2 special moves, and then you maybe get like 5 auto hit combos and then or if it's like classic MK2, it's just Sub-Zero standing in place, rapid punching up where there's nobody's head, but he just gets hit anyway, and then that's a combo for that day. Old school Mortal Kombat, I love it. It's my heart and soul, but they're trash. They're trash fighting games. They're terrible.
That's how I feel about Killer Instinct.
But when you say you feel like you're going through the water, I get it, because the controls have always been based off of arcade controls, which is a stick. And before the classic joystick and then couple buttons layout was popular, there was an arcade game that got immensely popular called Karate Champ. I didn't play it on NES as a kid because my daycare actually had an arcade cabinet of it. Just that game, though. So that's where I got my love of fighting games, is in, like, daycare. But that game didn't have the buttons. It was a game that used 2 joysticks, no buttons, except for maybe, like, start or something. So you have to figure out, with 2 joysticks, how to move a human being. So you feel like Plankton when he's controlling SpongeBob's brain with just 2 levers as he's walking. So I totally get that. It's totally like, that carries over into the later games of, okay, I'm moving back, now I'm moving forward. But there's a lot more mechanics going on in back and forward movement in a fighting game in general that probably do carry over into Smash. But the movement speed thing, I think I get what you mean.
Yeah, like let me be clear. I'm not dissing fighting games. I love watching them. It's just when when I play them, it's just that feeling of my character is 75% the height of the screen. Like they're big characters on the screen, but they move slowly. And Smash Bros is you're a little guy in the screen and you move really fast. And I like little guy moves fast. Is all I'm saying. As far as what I
you would love probably King of Fighters or Guilty Gear. Those are 2 faster-paced games where I would say if you just sat down and played Street Fighter 2, Special Champion Edition, classic Street Fighter 2, and then you sit down and play the competing game of the year, probably, well, in that era, it's probably going to be more like KOF 94, which is the first one, but, like, there's an instant difference in movement speed, okay, so Guilty Gear, for example, has something called air dashing. You can dash forward in fighting games in general, usually with a double input of the forward or back. You can back dash in certain games too. But air dashing is like you have that, except now it's up in the air. Mm-hmm. So the fighting games action in a Guilty Gear game is just it's like Dragon Ball Z anime levels of fucking fighting, except you can actually kind of see things, and they're just not cheaping out animation by just showing lines and little like ringer sound thing. But it's something you would probably like because it's a lot more mobile than something like Street Fighter feels. Street Fighter feels like you're walking through cement by comparison. So
also Guilty Gear has that babe in it, right?
Every
the one.
Every fighting game has like 3 babes.
I have said for a while that like if I got into a fighting game, it would be Guilty Gear, just from other things I've seen and heard about it too. It's also the very metal fighting game, right? So
yeah, it's all like the creators are just it's kind of like the creators of JoJo, where they're just like fascinated by just like Western rock and metal sounds. So they, even though like the matches will start off with just nonsensical announcer talk, like okay, I can't remember the intros now, but like an ending will be like to the new game Strive, like you kill someone, it'll go slash, and I think it's just like that either may just be their outro to the match, or it's announcing what you hit with. I actually think it might be the latter. But there are other instances where it's like the way that the match starts off, it's not like 1-2 fight like Mortal Kombat. It's like, oh God, it's like Rock On or some shit. I can't, dude. It's like, it's killing me.
3, 2, 1, let's jam.
No, yeah, it's not quite the tank level, but it's definitely like that vibe, I guess you'd say, though, except metal, not jazz.
Yeah. I hear you.
God to your song, though.
Let's rock. All right. Anyway. Oh man. So look, I got lots of notes about the direct, but I don't think we got to go through it all. However,
we can always make a direct centric episode.
That's
I wouldn't
true.
mind talking about everything they released.
I do really want to mention, for me, sort of the bomb drop was Outer Wilds is coming to Switch. That's the thing that, like, they said it right away, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be huge, the direct. And then the rest of it wasn't as good, right? But right away, they showed Outer Wilds on Switch, which is really surprising to me just because I didn't expect that game to really run on Switch. So let me ask you, what do you know about Outer Wilds?
I thought it was Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
And then you corrected me.
Right, not the Outer Worlds, which
Yeah.
I think is already on Switch, if I'm not mistaken.
I would not know.
So Outer Wilds and The Outer Worlds, they are both PC
Obsidian?
games. No, but they are both PC games that were on maybe they were on Kickstarter, and then they were Epic exclusive, and now they're on Steam, and now they're on Switch.
God.
So there's a lot of confusion between these two games, right? But anyway, okay. So the thing about Outer Wilds is, as far as like, let's do a game review of like something I've played recently, that was my number one game that I wanted to talk about today anyway. And now it's coming to Switch, so that's pretty cool. I hope it runs well. That's all I can say. Like, if it comes out and it's like, hey, it's 30 FPS and it sucks, and they added loading times in between the planets and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's not that surprising because it seems like a rough game to run. But if it's not like that and it runs well on Switch, I'll be very impressed. I was just gonna say, I've been telling my nephew to play it forever, and he has a Switch, but he doesn't have any platforms that he can play it on. So now he can play it on Switch.
Yeah, that's really what it's all about. I like that the Switch is available for games that you're just not going to get otherwise. Say if you just don't have a certain console and don't plan to buy it. I love ports in that respect, but yeah, I'm the same way. Every time I hear about something coming to the Switch, quote unquote, that's my first thought is, God damn it. Well, is it going to look good? Is it going to run good? Because I can't even begin to tell you, like, 60 frame rate snob here, guilty as charged. That's mostly from my first person shooter days. But in going back to fighting games, that's impossible. There's a game called SNK Heroines, Tag Team Frenzy. That is the girls of... It's a fan service game. It's about as Japanese anime scantily clad as you can get. All the girls from certain fighting game franchises by SNK. We only got it on Switch in the United States. It exists on PS4... in Japan, and I think I can import a Chinese copy of it, which will have English in it. But I think they stopped selling it, and it's really expensive now. But it's like, okay, now I have to deal with this game on Switch, and I can play it. It runs shitty, but it's okay because, to be honest, it's not that great of a game anyway.
Well, Outer Wilds, I think, is a big deal for Switch, and I'll have plenty to say about it later when we get to the let's actually talk about it for a minute. I think the biggest thing probably for most people is Squaresoft. Square Enix, yeah. Well, how long's it been? I still call them Squaresoft.
You still play games with Enix on the box, so I don't blame you, right?
Where they're right. I see the Squaresoft boot up more than I see the
too.
Square Enix one. So
yeah, there you go. That's the test.
So anyway, they had like 2 new games to show. One of them is Bravely Default 2.
And people are happy about that.
Yeah, so I have a bit of a history with Bravely Default. So here's the deal with Bravely Default. It came out for 3DS, right? And it's a, like, classical JRPG, you know? There hadn't been one of those from Square in a while. You got...
Spiritual successor to Valkyrie profile?
More like spiritual successor to Final Fantasy old school. Like Final Fantasy V even, where it's like, here it is. You got 4 dudes on your side of the screen. There's enemies on the other side of the screen. It's turn-based. There's a job system. You've got your sub-jobs so that everybody's really 2 jobs. It's got all that shit. The soundtrack is banging. The graphics are great. And like the first half of this game is 10 out of 10, dude. It's like, if you like JRPGs, it is the greatest shit until, and it's time for major spoilers, but hey, look, the sequel's about to come out, so it's time to talk about the first game. Halfway through the game, the whole thing is you gotta light up these crystals and then you're gonna go fight the bad guy because you
also Final Fantasy V.
Yeah, so after you light up the crystals, then the world is gonna be saved, right? After this person does this thing, right? But you do it and they're like, oh, it didn't work, and you light up the 4th crystal, oh, it didn't work, and everybody blacks out, and then we wake up and we're back in time. We have our memories of what all just happened, but we're back in time and it didn't work for some reason. All right. So then they have you do it all again. And you do it all again. And then the same thing just happens. And then they're like, okay, do it a 3rd time. And then do it a 4th time. And by the end of the game, they make you go through and do all this shit 5 times. Now, here's the deal. They do shorten it up a little bit every time. They like consolidate the story a little bit more every time, so it takes less time. But my issue, though, is that it turns into this game where the 4 main characters that you're playing as are the 4 stupidest individuals that have ever been written into a game. Because who would do this? They don't talk about anything as a team. You've got a team of 4 fucking people. 4 people, and when the thing that you try to do doesn't go right, and then everybody wakes up back in time, they don't discuss it. They don't have, like, a team meeting about, like, what do you guys think this means? Or maybe this time we shouldn't murder everybody, or that kind of thing. You know what I mean? But nobody has any of these discussions. They only just say, oh, wow, isn't that weird that it didn't work? Guess we better just do it again. And they do that 4 times.
Oh,
like,
no.
And so this game that starts out so amazing, it's like the stupidity of the main characters and the awfulness of the plot just makes it like really just irritating to play because you're seeing all this stuff over and over again, so it's repetitive, but it's like slightly different every time because they are doing it another time, and so like the cutscenes are slightly different. And you're just, the whole time, you're just waiting for the characters to, like, think about something. Or, like, and they just never, they're just idiots. So, it drove me insane. So, in the end.
Stark contrast, then, from the first game?
From what first game?
Or is this the first game?
This is the first game I'm talking about.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was after.
So I really liked the game up until like that halfway point where then you have to do everything over and over again and all the characters are really dumb and they never talk about anything and it's really frustrating. So in the end, it's like a game that I wouldn't even recommend because it's like a waste of time. Even though the engine and like the structure of the job system and the battle system and all that is really great. Yeah. So it drove me nuts, right? But that does mean that now we got Bravely Default 2 coming out, and I'm thinking, like, they can't just do that again, right? Like, it would be ridiculous. It would be ridiculous if they fucked up that badly again. They've got they still got cool job system. They've still got great soundtrack. It's on the Switch now, All these things are great. The thing that went wrong with the first one was the plot. So, like, as long as they just write a better story, you've got a 10 out of 10 game.
It makes me wonder what caused it to be. It sounds like it was a case of, like, rushed deadlines or something. They didn't have time to fill that area of plot, but they needed to keep the game extended out a little bit longer.
Yeah. And like, once I kind of breezed over it, but one of my biggest issues with the plot being written the way that it was that, like, you come across a bunch of bad guys, you fight through people, but they're human, right? You're fighting a lot of humans. And I feel like the morals of a story need to be pretty clear. Like, when you're fighting human opposition in a game, it implies that, like, they have a reason to be fighting you, right? They've got a system of beliefs. They've got a reason that they think that you are wrong. And so there needs to be a discussion of the morals, But every cutscene in the game that is good guy and bad guy talking to each other, they just kind of say that the other one's wrong. Neither person says their point. They're just like, you're an asshole and you're wrong. And then the other person is like, you never listen to me. You're an asshole and you're wrong. And then they fight to the death, And like, that's what you get out of it. So that's already frustrating, right? The fact that I'm, like, killing all these humans without really understanding their position or knowing why it's okay for me to be doing that. But then, now, imagine you are those characters where this has happened, including the death of one of the main character's fathers. Imagine this is your party, and now you all go back in time. And so you have the chance to do it all again. And so you just murder everyone again without talking about it? Like, it's fucked the way that this game is written. You would think that it would be like an opportunity to learn more about what's happening and to not kill people and figure out a better way to do the quest. But literally, the discussion between the characters is, oh, well, I don't know what else we could do except just do it again and see if it works this time. And that's all you get. 4 times.
How does the game get away with doing that? It's a SquareSoft game. They probably had the budget, I would assume.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
I think that they were writing a cool story.
Kind of like how the people who made the Sonic Adventure movie, or Sonic the Hedgehog movie, thought they had a really great working design of Sonic.
Yeah, because, like, I could see it working if it was done differently, if it was, like, what if it was more like Groundhog's Day, where, like, he tries to do things differently and it just fucks up in different ways, It
just turns into a roguelike halfway through?
That'd be cool. Like, you can do this kind of story. The problem is that you watch Groundhog's Day and it's like the character goes through all of the motions that you would go through if you were in that position, where first it's really weird and you're in denial, and then you're like, well, fuck it, and you just do what, and then you start to, like, try to construct the perfect day and that kind of thing, and you go through those motions, right? You can do that. This game doesn't do that. It's just, What if in Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray wakes up and every day he goes, it's the same day again. Guess I'll just do the same thing, exactly the same as last time.
Yeah.
And then so you just watch the opening act of the movie 5 times and then it's over.
And then it just works.
Well,
and it's over.
So at the end of Bravely Default, there is this big reveal, right? The big reveal is that the little there's this little mascot fairy with you who's telling you what to do the entire time. Who's like saying, you guys gotta do the crystals, right? And then you do the crystals and she's like, okay, I'm gonna do the thing, fucked up, right? It's like this little fairy that's doing that the whole time. And like, it's also, it's like this thing where it's like very clearly established throughout the game that she's like, she doesn't like having her authority questioned, like she gets really snappy anytime anyone questions her, right? Which they stop doing eventually. So obviously something's wrong here. But anyway, So after you do it 5 times, then it's, and she's got like a number on her wings. The design on her wings is like a 5 at the start of the game, and after you do the crystal thing once, then it's a 4, and then after that it's a 3, right? And
Oh,
it's
that's
like,
cute.
yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's good.
But like, again, when you have this information, and one of the characters in your party has amnesia, and like after the 3rd awakening or whatever, or the third crystal cycle, he gets his memories back and remembers that she's a bad guy, sort of, and knows about the wing pattern, but he just doesn't say anything. Like, it's so bizarre.
Figure it out.
It's so bizarre. So then at the end, then the main villain, or the fairy, is like, ha ha, idiots, I've been leading you on this entire time, and I got you to do it 5 times, and that means that the big bad guy comes out, and then the big bad guy comes out, and you, through the power of friendship, you fight him and defeat him, and then that's the ending, right? So anyway, the second one is coming out in 3 days, and I'm thinking, like, again, everything else about the game was so good that, it, like, as long as the plot isn't bad, then they've got themselves a really good game, right? So even though I can rant for a long time about the baffling decisions of the first one, I'm still going to play the second one, I think. I played the demo, though. So I got the demo, right? And it seems all right. I got some issues with it, though. Mostly,
does it show you much of the story?
You get like the character dynamic, right? Like there's plenty of cutscenes with the voice acting and all that. So you get introduced to the characters, but not necessarily the story so much. I got some issues with like the visuals of it. I feel like it does not have a very cohesive visual style. The first game had this really cool style to it where all of the environments had like this hand-drawn look to them, but they were 3D. It was like 3D, but the textures on them were like kind of hand-painted looking.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so like when it moved the camera around, it looked really cool. And then the 3DS had this style to its characters. I don't know if this is something
it's not cel-shaded, is it?
Kind of. It's like the 3DS has this look to it that a lot of games share, where there's like a 1 pixel outline on 3D models.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think it looks really neat, and with like the little chibi characters and the little outline on them, and it's kind of cel-shaded looking. I thought that it all fit together really nicely. So, Bravely Default 2 has kind of the same hand-painted looking towns, but the characters don't have any of that like outline or cel shading at all to them. They look like little figurines, kind of. Like, it's hard to explain exactly. They're still chibi characters, but they don't have any kind of like stylization to them.
I see what you mean. Yeah, they kind of look like a little bit more anime styled. What was it, Final Fantasy 11, where they had like the little bunny people or something? Whereas in the older, it kind of looked a little bit more, well, on the 3DS anyway. I see what you mean. It is kind of like the environment looks cel shaded. Like the rocks are definitely cel shaded. The characters themselves are just straight up 3D models, I think.
Yeah, and they just look like they're made of plastic, you know? Which,
yeah, kind of, yeah.
Which I think that really clashes with the backgrounds, and it kind of drove me a little nuts. And then the other
like
thing,
little dolls.
Yeah, and then the
guess.
other thing was motion blur. So they've also got like motion blur on the animations and such. And when you're running around in a dungeon, right? So you get to a dungeon and it's like a top-down view, and as you run around, your companions follow you, but like they are all motion blurred out as they're like whipping around and moving around behind you. And I don't know, I hated how it looked.
Yeah, I respect that. I mean, the thing that has me most excited, and I haven't even played the first game of it yet, is the triangle strategy,
Yeah.
which is the spiritual successor to Octopath. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, but I think Octopath's style of graphical design of classic low-res 2D sprite characters and beautifully rendered, but still kind of has the feeling that you're looking down at like a model train station or something. Characters like that in beautifully rendered 3D worlds with nice particle effects and weather systems and fog effects. It's probably one of the most gorgeous fucking art styles I've ever seen in a game. I haven't played Octopath yet, mostly because I don't really do a lot of stuff on the Switch, to be honest. And again, JRPGs and the time consumption.
So I might sound like a negative Nancy here, but so that's a style, right? A visual style. I hate it.
Okay, here we go.
So I'm not big into like putting depth of field blurry effects onto pixel art, you know? I think it just makes it really tough to look at.
Over top, like as in like you're seeing the sprite, but you see it through like a layer of fog or something.
Yeah, like where stuff on the like the
because if you were seeing those characters naturally, especially on a CRT, they'd be bright and lit and illuminated, so you wouldn't understand why they'd be faded or foggy. I guess I can see that.
Specifically, it's like blurry.
Just the blurriness, yeah.
So I got a bigger issue though when I played the Project Triangle strategy demo also, and so here's the deal. I don't need to explain this super technically because I think you'll pick it up pretty quickly what I'm saying.
Make sure the audience does too, though.
So you've got a sprite drawing of a character, some pixel art, right? Every pixel is 1 pixel, right? If you want to blow that character up bigger and make it be pixel art, you need to increase the size of it by a whole integer. As in, you need to exactly double its size or triple its size, because that way every column of pixels becomes 3 pixels. Every row of pixels becomes 3 pixels. If you're tripling the size, that is. So if you imagine 1 pixel, it is now a 3 by 3 pixel. Problem is, if you blow it up 3 times, but then go slightly smaller, like 2 pixels, 2 real TV pixels smaller, now you've got 2 pixels in that sprite that has been blown up 3 times that you need to get rid of. And so 2 of the columns on that character or that image are going to be 1 pixel thinner, right? And 2 of the rows are going to be 1 pixel thinner because it's slightly smaller than exactly tripled. You know what I'm saying?
Why would you are you saying the game specifically upscales to slightly smaller than 3x, or are you just giving a general example?
I am giving a general example, but it is also what the game does.
Oh, geez.
So
you're saying the sprites look like they're not in the correct aspect ratio?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what you the thing is, it gets super exacerbated by the camera. So if you so take this idea that you've got a pixelized sprite where if you blew it up exactly 3 times, it looks great. It looks like the regular thing, but it's 3 times bigger. Now, if you take 2 or 3 pixels off of that, it needs to evenly distribute throughout the character because it's done dynamically, right? So it evenly distributes throughout the sprite, 3 columns and 3 rows, where it gets rid of 1 row or column. And so those pixels are thinner and smaller. So that's what it looks like in the game. But the special problem, though, is that the camera slowly pans left and right on every scene. The camera is really subtly moving left and right, which under normal circumstances would look good. It's a little bit of camera movement. However, the way that interacts with the character sprites is that they are very slightly getting larger and smaller as the camera moves, which causes the number of thinner pixels and the position of them to move in a way that is smooth because the camera's moving really slowly. And so what you end up with is you're looking at this character sprite and they have this visible grid on them of thinner pixels that you can see moving on the character as the camera shifts.
Let me ask this. Did you play this game and notice this in both mobile and docked settings?
I only played it docked.
Okay. Interesting.
So
yeah, I guess I would have to play it to really see what you mean, but I haven't seen anything like that in the gameplay I've seen.
So let me give a better example, or like a more clear example as to what I'm talking about with this grid. Imagine you're playing, imagine what you've probably seen before on a retro game that is a side-scroller.
Jail bars? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're looking at a side-scroller, you would, if you're just looking at a still shot, you wouldn't really notice right away that one of the pixels is thinner. But when you have a scrolling background, you see every pixel pass by that thinner column, and so it becomes a bar that you can see on the screen because it's noticeable as stuff moves past it. So with these characters, it's like a grid on them that you can see that is like this, and it's moving across them all the time because the camera is slightly moving.
Have you seen there was a cartoon that I think kind of illustrates what you're kind of saying. There was a cartoon, I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was I think a few shows did this, but a character in the show was wearing plaid. And it was not as if they were wearing a plaid sweatshirt. They were wearing plaid that chroma keyed to the background. So the plaid pattern stayed the same while the character moved around with the shirt on. Mm-hmm. So the movement, there was no movement in the pattern of the shirt. It was just the movement of the animation lines of the character. It sounds like that's kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah, like it sounds like a nitpick, but I and a lot of people don't care. I think it drove me fucking insane when I was playing it.
I wish I could see it.
I couldn't stop staring at it. Like there was all this dialogue going on and story trying to be said to me, and I was just zoned in, just locked into this effect that was just driving me insane.
I was just gonna say, I guess the thing that appeals to me most about it is it feels like when I watch footage of the gameplay, because again, I still don't own it. I think it is exactly what I had hoped newer quote-unquote 3D Pokemon games would have looked like. Like, if I could have had the Pokemon universe in this style, like, think about the setting of Octopath. It's in the woods a lot of the time, or mountains. There's lots of nice fog. Think of that just being like, I don't know, take some of the warmth out of the color, make it a little bit more neutral or even cool, and then like think of that as the Viridian Forest. And I was like, oh shit, this fucking cabin here looks like a Pokemon Center. That is kind of why I like it so much. And when I tried like Pokemon Platinum, it was in that style, but to a way, way less detailed degree. Mm-hmm. So it's something I guess I just feel like I hope we got, but never did. And then I saw this, and it's like, oh, this is like, it's kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics graphics without a field map.
So here's what I was going to say, or what I was just thinking, actually, it is a style that can be done well, totally. I just feel like it needs to be executed slightly differently. Like, as far as the problem with the sizes of the characters, look at Final Fantasy Tactics, right? There's a game where the camera moves and pans around, yet the characters are always the correct size, you know? So
because they're sprites, they're always forward-facing. They spin towards the camera.
Yeah, and this game, the Project Triangle strategy, it does the same thing, where it's got the 45-degree angle version of the sprite. It's got the face-on one, you know. It does that.
That's cool.
So they could just make the characters not do the thing I'm complaining about by just making them like a static size, you know. I think it's just a matter of the way that they've executed it is that it's not the, what do you call it? Is it orthographic, where like a 3D plane isn't, it doesn't take perspective into account? So
I think orthopedic, but no.
So like Final Fantasy Tactics, if a character is all the way on the other side of the map versus a character that's to the front, they're the same size.
Like Godzilla or something. Like if you were to actually use perspective. I see what you mean. Exactly, yeah.
But I think, and I'm not positive, but I think the problem that I'm facing is that Project Triangle Project doesn't do that. And so when the characters are a little bit further away from the screen, they're slightly smaller. And that is exactly what causes the problem.
I was just about to say, so distance, that is something that is not able to be taken account of in a game with 2D sprites that have a set limit of animation frames. Distance is definitely going to be that's almost like, I guess I can liken it to playing like a Lego game. You know what I mean? Everything feels like it's going to be a certain size, but do they scale the 3D models of the Legos as they go past? You can't really do that with something that's pixelated, because yes, then exactly what happens is you're seeing scaling that is not happening at the same rate of like the camera's viewing angle of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So that I totally see that now. I never took that into consideration, but I think that does definitely fit the definition of nitpick.
Yeah, I mean, right. Some people, they would have never noticed. To me, it was just this like glaring thing that just it distracted me and drove me insane. So the rest of this demo, though, my experience with it was that, and this is even more. Look, I'm a grumpy old man, but this is a demo, right? So I download this demo for you to show me your new game, and it is front-loaded with like 20 or 30 minutes of dialogue and talking. And I'm just like, just give me a battle. This is a tactical RPG. I want to get into that grid-based battle system, you know?
To the point you had earlier, though, with Bravely Default, there are games like that which, you know, especially like with tactics, and I think tactics, for as much as I'm actually not a fan of it, it does do well establishing the politics of the era in the universe that they're in. Like, well, this kingdom was our ally in this conflict, so they're friendly towards us. Maybe we should go send them reinforcements when this happens. Stuff like that. That happens in the very first part of the game, but it's not 20 minutes.
Yeah. I realize some people play games just for story, you know, and they'll have a great time with that intro to that demo, getting very immersed, you know. I'm the I want gameplay, right? Gameplay is 3 times more important than any other thing, at least. And so for a demo, I want that right away. But so this is something. I got one more thing to talk about with Project Triangle Strategy, which is that, so you get into a fight, right? Finally, I'm done bitching about how the graphics look and all too much story. You get into a fight, right? Seems pretty fun. The tactical fighting is really cool. You know, it feels a lot like Final Fantasy Tactics. If you're into tactical RPGs, it's not the Fire Emblem style or the Advance Wars style. It's the like Final Fantasy Tactics style, you know? Your units are your units, and you go up to a dude and you hit the guy on the square next to you. The biggest mechanic was that if there is another ally of yours on the other side of a dude that you're hitting, they'll combo, right? But then the same thing happens with enemies also, so you got to be careful with your positioning and that kind of stuff. So it seemed really cool. The different characters were very unique from each other, you know? Yeah, you had your bow user and your mage. They had like ability points where every turn you got 1 ability point, and certain moves that you could do cost 2. So like the mage's fire ability cost 2 ability points, so they can only do it every other turn. And that kind of thing. So I really liked all that kind of stuff about it. It didn't run super smoothly, and I hope that that's just a demo thing. Just things like when you highlight a character with your cursor, it kind of brings up this visual grid of where they can move and what they can attack. But every time it does it, it hitches. So like
the frame rate just dips a whole bunch.
It takes a couple extra frames for it to load it, you know.
Oh yeah, it pauses for a second.
Yeah. And so that's kind of noticeable when you're just trying to like navigate around the grid with your cursor, and every time you pass over something, it hitches.
I would think it's probably just an optimization issue that'll probably get worked out.
Yeah, really specifically when the issue occurred was when it needed to load in a visual element when you like moused over something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was real specifically the thing. It has to load in this grid to show you this thing, and it just takes a moment. So yeah. It seemed cool though. It was harder than I expected, so I like that a lot. It seems like when your people die, they just die right there. Which that's more the Fire Emblem style to do it that way. So yeah, it was that part of it was all right.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to talk about today?
We got I think that's about it for me.
Pretty good summation of just like our interests, I guess. If we have masochistic souls out there willing enough to listen to my voice for that long.
Oh, as far as introductions go, I don't want to. I feel like I sound like a real negative Nancy after all that bravely.
Oh,
Default
don't worry. We'll compete for that title. We can have a negative Nancy belt.
Let me just say, Final Fantasy Tactics, what a video game, dude. 10 out of 10.
I agree, but I had a bad time when I played it because that's one of those games where if you're bad at it, it's a long, painful, slow, drudging death.
It's a tough game.
It's like you're like a mouse in a fucking coiled up snake just trying to get it. Every time you think you're gonna do something, it's like you just slide back further in. You just start choking, and things just get worse. And every time there's hope, it just makes it worse. That's me in Final Fantasy Tactics. So I'm not a huge tactical person, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I haven't played I haven't played a ton of tactics games. I really liked that one. And then recently I've been getting into the first Fire Emblem game, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this episode's been pretty good dive into our interests. And I guess in future episodes, we'll eventually come up with a name.
Yeah. And maybe have a more focused topic to talk about. Because the thing is, we bounced around 100 different subjects, and every one of them I could have gone longer on, personally.
Yes, exactly. Me too. I didn't think I could, but I think the fact that we're at literally the 2-hour mark on my recording right now tells me we can.
So, and on that note, because I was talking about how I wanted to talk about Outer Wilds today, and then I was gonna, ask if you wanted to talk about a game that you were playing to do like a reviewy kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's been 2 hours, so maybe we should save that for next time.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably do a 3-4 hour podcast, but I don't know that anyone else can. But if you want to end it there, that's cool with me.
Yeah.
What do you want to plug anything of yours? I guess I've never plugged anything on a podcast before. It's my first podcast.
I don't think so. Check out the Twitch people that we mentioned, Dying Camel and Cortland 12, and there might have been a couple others in there.
Yeah, Dying Camel, Cortland 12, Mechanical Koopa, and honestly, just hang around. If you're a fan of the podcast so far, and if you hang around, you'll probably see them in the chat here from time to time. Yeah,
exactly. And I suppose that's something for the later listeners that we should mention also, is that we are
live.
We're doing it live. So if you're ever interested in seeing it live, or just seeing the other things that we do throughout the week, come check us out.
Absolutely. I got my Twitch channel that I'm mostly active on now. Dash and I are both on Twitter, YouTube. Do you do anything on YouTube?
No, I think the best answer is just no.
Well, you do now, because this is going to be on YouTube. In fact, for the people who are listening later, thank you so much for finding us on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. We will probably be on more platforms as we figure out how to run a fucking podcast for one. But I think this is pretty damn good for a first episode, at least sound quality. I haven't edited it yet, or if you want to edit it, we haven't even figured out any of those details yet.
Yeah.
But for now, I guess I'm signing off. I don't have anything else. If you want to say anything.
Yeah, sounds good. I hope I wasn't too negative and didn't talk too much. I'm worried.
I think being negative and talking too much is what podcasts are all about.
Maybe, because I can just imagine though listening to me talk for an hour and just being like, what a fucking dickhead. But
Oh, dude, I'm used to it by now. On my YouTube channel, like I make one video specifically designed to get views. Like a list video, like 5 things I hate about my blank, and like there's like a comment every fucking morning on that video. Why does this guy fucking whine so much? It's like it's a video made to whine. It's the point. That's not how I actually go about my day to day. Like I don't just go around like, this thing sucks, and here's why. 5 times more. Human beings don't operate that way, but that's what gets them to click on the video. So
yeah, like
I'm used to that kind of criticism.
I'm very much the type of person where, like, if people are having a conversation about something that I think is stupid, I'm not gonna jump in and talk about how dumb it is, right? I mind my own business and try to keep negativity to a minimum, like day by day, right? But if you're gonna give me a platform and say, Dash, what do you think of Sonic the Hedgehog? I'll let you know.
We can get real visual with it. But I'm happy with the way this is turning out so far.
Yeah, sounds good. And so this is a Tuesday thing, I guess, is also important to say.
Yeah, so we are doing this right now on a Tuesday. I think Tuesday is probably going to be the best day to work out for us for right now. Tuesday evenings. When did you... I guess we'll have a start set time, which is what, 8 p.m. Mountain Time or Central or at Eastern?
Yeah, something like that. And Tuesday is the live time as far as when we actually post it. We're not sure.
Exactly. We'll figure that out, later.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, dude. Glad to keep doing this with you.
Oh, yes. Thanks to you as well. And thanks for listening.
To everyone. Peace.